Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. From great-grandparents 100 years ago to sons and daughters today, the Hines family has always made sure East Tennesseans have the tools and materials they need for their building projects. 100 years does not happen by accident. Visit A.G. Hines Company this week. The second Vol selected this past weekend in the NFL Draft, Hendon Hooker. He was largely expected to be the second Vol taken, but he went later than expected. He went early in the third round, fifth pick of the third round, 68th overall, to Detroit. Now, often you think Detroit and you think, uh-oh, that franchise. Well, they were in playoff contention until the final week. It's a franchise that appears
final
to be
game.
Appears to be in better shape now. They have Jared Goff in place, but he has a contract, no guaranteed money in 2024, the final year of the deal, so 2 years remaining. A chance for Hendon maybe to sit, learn as he still recovers from his ACL, expected to be cleared by the start of the regular season. Bob Hodge, thoughts on the landing spot, the opportunity for Hendon in Detroit?
I think that Detroit is a good situation for him. At the end of last year, Detroit was probably playing better than a lot of the playoff teams.
Yeah.
I mean, if they had played that way the whole season, Detroit would have probably been a playoff team. So I think they've got a good coach. It looks like they've got a good system in place. I think for Hendon Hooker to be able to go in there, and I read this a bunch about him. He needed a redshirt year. Mm-hmm. Well, you're at a place where, barring some kind of catastrophe for Detroit, he'll get that redshirt year. I think he has a lot to learn, but I also think he's the kind of guy that will learn. I don't think you're going to read stories about, well, he doesn't spend much time in the film room. Well, you know, he's not at every meeting on time. I think he will do the best he can to absorb what Detroit does, which is a relatively standard NFL offense. They don't do anything really off the charts. So if they do give him that redshirt year, I think he has a chance to succeed. And where he got drafted, I think was where I would have expected him to get drafted. I did not think he was a first-round looking quarterback. I think with the ACL, that pushed you down a little bit farther. I thought if you draft him in the late second round, early third round, you're making a great deal. I thought if a team had taken him in the first, because of the learning curve and because of the ACL, it would have been a little bit shaky. So I like where he went. I'm sure he would have liked it better to go higher. But I also just think the fact that he's a good, solid citizen, he'll get in there, grind out, and I think down the road he has a chance to be successful.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think he's definitely got a chance to be successful because, I mean, let's face it, you can be successful in the NFL as a quarterback by being a great backup quarterback and playing 10, 15 years in playing in the league and make a lot of money doing it without putting your body at risk. So, I mean, he's got a great chance. I think he's going to be a guy that picks it up, learns. Mark Brunell's there, longtime NFL quarterback, you know, who could be able to teach him not only, you know, about the game there, but how to be a pro. Those kinds of things you need to learn from somebody, and usually a veteran. So I think he's going to get the great start to his career there, and not a lot of expectations. And I think overall, all he has to come out there is you know, when you get a shot or two, just show you're calm, cool, relaxed, and are able to make a few throws, and he'll be there a long time because, like I said, even if you're not the starter, you're going to be a backup. And if you can show where, hey, we put you in the game and you give us a chance to win, that's what a backup in the NFL is all you're expected to do. And so whether he becomes a star or not, I think he's got a great chance of playing a long time in the NFL.
I think he will be successful in the NFL. I'm pretty convicted about that with Hendon Hooker. And look, it is a really good situation. They only have Jared Goff, who he had his best season last year. Mm-hmm. And Nate Sudfeld is their backup. There's only two quarterbacks they have. So from a number standpoint, that's a real positive. Jared Goff's contract is over after 2024. So as just you pointed out, there's no guaranteed money. So they could move on. Now, here's the thing. If Jared Goff has his best season because they continue to add weapons on offense and that team is getting better, maybe he gets signed to a new deal. Then
he could get an extension, sure.
Right, and then you're kind of stuck there as a backup. But there is also the possibility of a pathway to next season or maybe even 2 years from now being the guy there. He is so smart. I'm not worried about the transition. But Brad Holmes, the general manager of the Lions, he admitted that, look, we really liked him, but we had to do a deep dive on that offense. That offense was something that we had to really look at. That, I think, was one of the biggest things that held him back in some. They considered taking him earlier. Some teams probably didn't because of that not knowing about the transition. But he is so smart, and he's such a gym rat. I think he's going to get it done.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was going to say the only thing that worries me about that is at Virginia Tech, they ran an offense closer to what you'd see in the NFL than what Tennessee does. And he had some success in it. So I do think I've got more of a question than Vince does about him adjusting to a new kind of offense. But I think if he is giving the learning curve, which it looks like he's going to get, and quite honestly, if I'm Hendon Hooker, I don't mind not being the guy until after 24. 2 years to sit there, 2 years to absorb, playing a little bit along the way. I think that will benefit him. I didn't think he was one of those guys. If you draft him in the first round, like a lot of people had him going, people expect that quarterback to play that year.
You get talked about why you were not out there as opposed to a third-round pick. That's not going to
Exactly. So I think it benefits him where he went.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. If you think about the draft, right, you got the first-round picks of quarterback, and they need somebody to play right away. And then you have this other group that has a quarterback transitioning that maybe we're going to not want to re-sign and all that stuff. But it's really hard to take them in the second round. I know Levis got taken in the second round, but actually Titans were trying to trade up in the first round to get him. Mm-hmm. And it's hard because if you have a quarterback, you risk, what happened to Aaron Rodgers and them taking Jordan Love, and you ticking off your quarterback for the next 2 years and having big issues. So I think teams kind of aligned. I take the guy now, I'm going to play this year, and I don't worry about it. Or that third round is when I don't have to tick off my other quarterback that I'm planning for the future guy, but this guy's not here to take your spot. I think that's the other reason why the most quarterbacks get taken in that third round if they're not taken in that
And
first
I sound
round.
like I'm a little hard on Hendon Hooker. I liked him better than I did Levis, and I liked him better than I did Anthony Richardson. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've got great
You're
potential.
surprised by the gap in where they end up falling versus Hendon in the draft?
I mean, that's what, when I came in and I asked Will, I said, hey, how did the combine, how did that work for you before you got drafted? It was because Anthony Richardson's a combine guy. I mean, he blew everybody away at the combine. I like guys who perform, and that's the reason I liked Hendon Hooker better than either one of them. He performed more consistently over 2 years. Yeah, Levis had great games, and Anthony Richardson had a good game against Tennessee, great game against Utah. That was it. So I liked him better than either one of those two.
Anthony Richardson's combine performance didn't help Hendon. Might help another Vol, which
It could.
we'll cover a little bit later
it could.
on the show. When we come back, Hendon started a bit of a run in the third round. We'll talk about his playmakers who went in the NFL draft, Jalen Hyatt, when we come back right here on The Sports Source.